So you're good to go?
Yes.
Excellent. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk to Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle C. Baker. And before we start today's interview, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening in from or watching. And today I have a great guest and an amazing guest. And I know I say this on every episode, but this one is close to my heart. I have the lovely Helen Lidman with me. I would call her my black card book sister. She's an amazing author, and I will jump right in and introduce you to her. Thank you so much, Helen, for joining me today.
Thank you, Danielle. I'm so glad to join you here.
Oh, that's amazing. And just before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yes, I can share briefly a long story, but I'm Helen Lidman, author of the book Never Again, The Evil Cycle of Addiction. I'm 41 years old, living in Stockholm, Sweden, and got to know you through Black Heart Books.
That's great.
Yes. And, well, my story is... from childhood, being struggling with finding identity, feeling lost, lonely, void, and quite early in my teens, find a refuge in alcohol, and it got me already then, early teens, and I was stuck for 1.5 decade, more or less,
Wow.
until I got. I need to find the right words for this. I got an excuse to quit briefly. I got pregnant, and I made a decision that I wanted to do what I could for this child I was bearing, and at that point, I got and I received help from the medical care system here in Sweden, and it was very struggling at first, very struggling. I was in a relationship, a roller coaster relationship, a couple of years with. Father of my son, and I decided after only a year to separate from him, and I was standing in this by myself, also trying to handle my own sobriety, and I finally received real help, because I had some support from this therapist I went to, but I still felt I was so overconsumed with negative emotions and feelings and thinking and feeling drained, literally. So I wasn't really content with life at all. And I went there for maybe 2 years. And finally she said to me, Helen, we have done what we can do for you here now. So you need to continue elsewhere. And she pointed me in the direction to a 12-step fellowship, which became my new pack. And I learned about this evil cycle of addiction and what it truly means. It's not just that the alcohol is my refuge. It's so much complicated. Just as we are complicated as human beings, this disease of addiction is equally complicated. It affects every part of us. Physical, mentally, and spiritual. So this is what I have been urged to share in my book, how this in detail, how it affects mankind in all these parts. And now I've been sober for 13 years. And it's an ongoing, it's still ongoing, day by day. And I have gone through very, very tough seasons lately. And I haven't had alcohol on my top of mind at all. I have turned to this fellowship, to God, as I have come to know God's strength in my life. And that's the solid foundation for me now. So I have a new escape.
Yeah. And we'll talk about your book a little bit later on, because you do mention, when I got the opportunity to read it, you just present addiction in a different way, and I thought it was very interesting, coming from somebody who's lived it. That the words that you use are words we're not using in trying to help people with addiction. So we'll take that. But before we started, I know you wanted to open up the interview with a reading. So this is the first time that we're doing this on the podcast. So I'm going to leave the mic to you to open up this episode with a beautiful reading.
Thank you, Danielle. Yes, as I told you, I wanted to share a reading of a prayer. Since my faith is what I lean on in every assignment I do. So I want to share a prayer where I welcome Holy Spirit into this session we have today. So I welcome you, most Holy Spirit, into everything that comes into my way today. Into every relationship, I welcome you. With every person that crosses my path, and in every conversation, I welcome you. In each and every circumstance, I welcome you. In every situation that arises, planned and unplanned, I welcome you. And through every challenge and ease of movement, I welcome you. Let me always remember, I am not here on my own effort, but by the power of your mighty Spirit that sustains me. By the light and life of your loving Spirit that moves through me. I ask for wisdom, and I ask for courage to approach this day with love, faith, and confidence. And I ask for discernment and a clear vision, so I may remain on the high path of grace, always open to you, my Most High God. And I ask for your guidance, so I may stay out of my own way. I release now my need for security and acceptance. I release my need for approval and affection. I let go of my need for control. I let go of my need to be right. For I trust as I live this day, in and through the presence of you, my living God, all things will work together for good. All things will work together for my healing, for my transformation, and my deepest longing to know you, Christ, and to love you, Christ, and to live in you, Christ, my truest self. Let it be so.
Thank you very much. It is a beautiful message of you that. I really like that. That's a beautiful, beautiful message. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me share it.
No, and I could see how that can give you strength every day when you're wake up every day, starting a new day. I think it's a wonderful message. Thank you for sharing. Now we can dive right in and ask you, because you did mention a little bit on your introduction about the addiction and the struggles that you may face sometimes. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you had to deal with while recovering from addiction?
I think the main point was that I didn't actually realize that I was an addict, that I had a disease called alcoholism, because I was in denial, in a romanticizing idea of alcohol, and using it as my elixir for life. Whenever, if I wanted to feel good, if I was sad, if I was in anxiousness, it was my solution for every kind of situation. So when I finally decided that I should quit temporarily, it was only temporarily when I first started, for the sake of my son, and I had no, promises that this would be a lifetime decision. So the challenge at that time was, can I do this? Can I not drink? How am I going to manage? Because it had been, as I mentioned, it had been my dearest friend from early teens, the only one I could truly count on to stand by my side in every matter. So that was the first challenge. Can I do this? And how am I supposed to gain the strength to say no? But I think I had a quite strong psychological, what do you call it, shield at the time, because I could focus. It's not only for my sake; it's mostly for the baby, But when I finally received what I say, my true help, when I received help from another alcoholic who could explain to me what it truly means, this addiction, it is not about alcohol. It's more about the internal, what's going on inside what's going on the inside,
Yeah.
And when I could identify, in what I describe in the book, that I get a certain reaction when I actually drink, I could relate to when I start drinking alcohol. There's no point where I'm satisfied. It just goes for another and another and another and another and another. There's no natural point when I feel, okay, now it's enough. It doesn't exist. And that I, from time to time, get to a point when I feel like I can't go on like this. I need to quit. I need to make a change, and I realized that the alcohol is, destroying my life. But after a while, since I don't have any tools to handle this internal frustration, this empty hole that I was trying to describe in my introduction, feeling, lost and lonely and just hopeless. The idea of alcohol is there in a bit. Again, even though I said like, no, never again. So the challenge is to stay in the decision.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah.
And it doesn't come. I couldn't do it by myself. I needed help, and I received it. So I like to put it like that. You don't only have to ask for help; you have to receive it.
Yeah. And that's a good point, because you can ask, but you need to be ready to take it, to get the help and to do the work that comes with it. And I love what you said, that the challenge was to stay in the decision, to stay sober, which is for somebody who hasn't lived it, seems trivial. It just seems, well, yeah, that's what you want to do. But for somebody who's living the addiction, that says it all. It's a very powerful statement. My challenge was to stay in the decision. Yeah,
it is, because if I could stay in the decision, it wouldn't ever have been a problem.
That's right. Yeah. And that's what kind of leads me to the next question, because I mentioned earlier, you present addiction in such a different way than what we've known. And that was one thing that I said when I work with my clients, that I will look at it differently, that I can bring on a different approach to help that person. But you talked about that reaction. And you get a reaction, almost like not an allergic reaction, but there is a trigger, then it's just out of your control. Can you kind of explain a little bit more to you, what does that look like for you in terms of addiction, that reaction that you get?
Because that is how it's put in the 12-step literature, which was also written by a doctor, actually, when I don't know, in the early 1940s, 1939, I think. It was the first time that book was published. That they describe it, that an alcoholic or an addict, whatever symptom may be, is that it gets an abnormal reaction in the body that is not common for, in generally common. And for an alcoholic, that would be the abnormal reaction, as I described, the craving for more alcohol. And some natural or normal reaction to alcohol would be, okay, I can have a glass or two, and that is fine. It doesn't bother me. It can also be that they don't really like their reaction, coming with nausea or headache or dizziness, which is completely normal, thinking that this is like actually poison.
Yeah, right.
One puts into the body. But the abnormal reaction is that there's no natural stopping point.
Yeah.
However much is consumed.
That's right. And that's the part that needs to be understood. It's not something you can just stop. It really is an abnormal reaction. So we can't use it as like you said, a normal reaction as a reference point, because that does not exist in an addict's world. So approaching it as, well, just stop, it's not going to happen, because there's that abnormal trigger, I guess, in the body. It's physical, and it
is, and it can be related to other kinds of addictions. Food, for example, is no natural point of contentment, how much I eat, or for sex, I can have so many sexual engagements, but it doesn't fill this true inner void. Or work. I can sit and work for hours and hours and hours. But there's no natural point when I think, okay, now I'm done. It's finished. It's enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, if people could understand that, I think it would be more prepared to help people through it, is to know that there is no stopping point. The void is bottomless. It's limitless. It just keeps going. Yeah. Yeah. And how did you, what helped you get through those difficult times? Because you did mention some. So when you decided, okay, this needs just never again, I'm never doing this again. What helped you to get through it and get healthy?
Yes, eventually I got to that point that I wanted really to stick to my decision, never again. Or actually, it came to like, I'm not ready to start drinking yet.
No.
I think my son was about a year, so still a toddler, and I felt this obsession in my mind of alcohol just chasing me. I was tempted when I saw other people having their drinks for dinner, and I was, oh, what is this? I don't want this. Why am I tempted? Why do I have this very strange thoughts, longing for something that I don't want, that's not good for me? And that's when I realized, no, I can't do this on my own. I cannot do this on my own, in my own strength. How much I even want to, I cannot, put those thoughts away. So I asked for help in this 12-step fellowship I was in. And I asked the woman, she put it like this, all this is all on volunteer basis, but she put it like this in the meeting I was, so that I don't come here any longer to quit drinking. I continue because I don't want to start again. And that was what I needed at that time. I didn't want to start again. So I went up to this lady, and I was like, it's like, asking someone for a date. I don't know. But I was a bit nervous. But I asked, okay, hey, can you help me? I think I need this. I need to dive into this, which is, the program. It's a 12-step method. And she said, sure. And there's a literature we use. It's called Alcoholics Anonymous, a book. And she said, oh, you got the book? I said, yeah, I got it. And I read it. So I'm done, I read it. I'm done. So naive. But she was like, okay, we'll start up. And it's one thing to read this book page to page or cover to cover. And it's one thing to practice what it's the suggestions. It's completely different. So she guided me, and first that I finally could admit that I am powerless. I am so powerless unto this alcohol and this unmanageable life I was living on the inside. Didn't manage my negative thinking, my negative emotions, and all this spinning. And through the practices, by the steps 1 to 12, I I received this strength. It's promised once you work these steps to have a spiritual awakening, and that is what I have received, and also want to share with the world. I think most people not in this who are not have been involved in 12-step. This is the description of the disease is quite new. But for those who have been engaged in these communities, they for sure know everything about what's in this book already. So I really want to create a larger awareness globally, because and even new people who hear about this, and they say, like, I had no idea it was this complicated. I understand why I just cannot stop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you really touched on a good point there. That it's one thing. I read the book. I'm done. I'm okay now. No, the work itself, and this is why it's such a struggle, and why people will sometimes fall back into bad habits, because it's the work itself. But if you stick to it and not doing it alone, that's the other thing too. It's too much to take on by yourself, and it's an important message to send out there. And that's kind of where I want to lead to with the next question. Is this is with this podcast, I always like to bring things that people don't talk about, either because it's something that we just never used to talk about, or something that may trigger other people. But is there, from your point of view and from what you've lived, is there anything that families and loved ones really need to know about the person that is struggling, that person may not be able to express depending on where they are in their healing, and the kind of help that they wish they would get, that people are not giving them because they're thinking it's oh, well, just stop, snap out of it and stop drinking? Is there anything like that we should know about, that families and loved ones should know about the person that's struggling?
Yes, one main thing, that if the person is not willing himself or herself to make a change, there's not going to be a change, not a wholehearted change. At least it can be enforced, by employers or family members, saying, okay, now it's enough. You choose me, the bottle,
right,
or I'm out. And even in those situations, if the person is not willing, he or she will choose the bottle.
Right.
Yes. So that's the sad truth that you need to know. Either you hang in there until there's a point of willingness, and even when that occurs or arises, a willingness to make a change. As I said, I have come to this point time and time again during my life that, okay, now it's enough. I need to change, and it's just a matter of time. It's like a window of maybe 3 days tops.
Yeah.
Tops. And if there's not action taken at that point immediately, it will go a new round, in that circle.
Yeah.
So willingness is the main ingredients for every recovery.
Yeah.
And willingness can come from hard consequences from family members. It can.
Right. Oh, that's a good point.
That's the tough one, being solid in a decision to, tough love.
You're right.
And family members also need to make sure, they care for themselves, not only the one in trouble.
Oh, that's important too. Yeah, like you said.
Because I think the book itself is also a big help to whoever lives with an addict or have family members who have problems. It will put a new light on what they're dealing with, or what this person is dealing with.
Yeah, and it's a good point that you mentioned, that tough love. Sometimes you just don't want to make it even harder on the person, but it can be the reason that they'll be willing at one point and say, well, now this has gotten out of hand. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Thank you for sharing that one. Because again, it's not something that we'll mention. They always say you can't. If a person's not willing to do it, they won't do it. But to hear it for somebody to say they have to be and to act now when they say, okay, I need this now, not to wait a week, but just to get it, to drop everything and go. That's important. What would you say to somebody who's trying to get sober? They just don't know where to turn to get that help, or to, they don't even know where to start. What would your advice be for somebody who's trying to get sober?
I would say, depending on their type of addiction or the type of struggle, they would look for a local 12-step community, and perhaps also take contact with medical care, doctor, nurse, and explaining their issues, because sometimes we need support from both both areas. There's so many different kind of 12-step groups now. There's AA, NA, CA, going on, so depending on type of addiction, choose what suits best,
Right?
Because I think identification is also main ingredient when you come as a newcomer, that I can identify and relate to the other people who are there. And I think that's also why there's so many different kind of fellowships popping up.
Yeah, and that makes sense too, because then the people really know what you're going through, and they'll be able to understand if they've gone through it, or they've gone through it with a loved one. So that's also an important, and to go and get that help. There's so many people out there that are willing to help, but doing it alone is, a lot of people will be embarrassed, maybe, or showing weak. They see it as a weakness or something, but you do need that help. You need that support.
Yes, it's such a strength. It's false shame. Seeking help. It's false. It takes so much courage and strength to take this step and ask for help and receive help. So it's a victory. It's the first victory you ever take in this process, because if you don't start, there can't be any progress. You need to take that first step.
And it takes a lot of strength to do it. You're right, it's a false weakness, because it does take a lot of strength to ask for help. And
these fellowships, these communities are the most loving, caring, genuine people that you'll ever meet. I would say that any person should visit this kind of meeting, even if you don't have a problem. Just go there and meet these people, because they want to share what they have received, and it is this strength, this hope, this inspiration. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's amazing.
That's good. What kind of advice do you wish you would have had earlier to make your life easier? Is there anything, advice or wisdom you wish you would have had?
You mean before I started my sober journey?
Or even before you started drinking or anything, like any piece of life advice that you wish you would have gotten sooner?
I don't know. It's very difficult question.
It is.
I felt very unseen when I was a child. I grew up in a family where addiction has been going on, and I felt unseen and lonely, and I had different symptoms for this, migraine and not wanting going to school. I don't know. I don't know if it had been different for me if someone had seen me at that point and lifted me up. I don't know, but what advice I wish I had gotten, I don't know. I can't answer, Danielle.
It's a difficult one.
It's a speculation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it. It's not an easy one, because it depends on the situation and when that advice would have come in, if you would have received it or just brushed it away.
And I'm thinking maybe in school, I was a mess in school, the late years. Right. We don't have the same school system here, but when I was maybe from 15 to 19, my teachers knew, they observed, and they spoke to my parents, but there weren't enough consequences for me. So that as we spoke about earlier, consequences can be good.
Yeah, it could be the reason that makes you decide, oh, this needs to end now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when after school I left home and I went to Spain, to Madrid, and there I was completely on my own, can do whatever I wanted. So it was time for progressiveness in my consumption.
Right. Yeah, you had an open
yes.
It was an open book then. Yes. How do you find balance in your life, with work, with life, with your son and family, everything? How do you find the balance?
It's hard, really hard to find balance. But one motto, you say like that, motto I have is that I need to rest first. Before I do anything else, I rest first. Before I gonna clean my apartment, I rest first. Before I gonna do this and this assignment, I rest first. I do a lot of prayer and meditation, and it's strengthened me. Because I had in a couple of years ago, I don't know now, it's 2018, I had exhaustion depression, you call it like that. And from that I have really learned that I need to scale down and take one thing at a time.
And that's good. And so I like asking this question because everybody is different, and it's kind of to show that there's not a a magic formula. Everybody, you need to listen to your body, and sometimes you may not need that rest, but there are days where you absolutely need it before you burn out. So it's important to listen to those signs. So
yes.
rest.
Because that is what I will most likely not do if I don't do it first.
Okay. See, and you're able to recognize that. That's good, because a lot of people won't recognize that they need that rest, and then just keep pushing through.
Yes, we're just in that daily wheel, we get up, make our coffee, do our breakfast, head up to work, send the kids to school. We work our days, and kids come home from school, dinner. At least that's my daily life. And I have a lot of activities, with my ongoing program, recovery, and so helping a lot of people. So I need to make that time. Yes.
Yeah, you need to recharge your battery, so to say. It's just kind of get that energy.
That picture once, I don't know. It was like an image on a cell phone saying you wouldn't let this drop to red or run out, your phone battery, but you will let your own battery run out.
Yeah, we tend to do that, and we need those visuals. But rest is important, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people will put that last or completely ignore it, and that's how you get a burnout. Absolutely. Is there anything that you're working on right now, or anything coming up for you?
Yes, I have decided to also translate my book to Swedish because I think it's only been published in English so far, and it's been people asking me here locally, and perhaps it will be easier to reach out also locally if it's in this local language. And otherwise, I started new work just 2 months ago, which is very time consuming, starting a new work. I work as a manager for the social department at the Salvation Army here in Stockholm.
Oh, wow.
So it's quite large and very fun. I love the people. I love the work itself. But it's starting a new job is always
It comes with its challenges. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And 2 months, you're still in it. You're still in the learning process. So it's adjustment. Yeah.
And also, just before this meeting, I've asked for help again because I had a very tough season this last autumn. Actually, the son of my father of my son, who I lived with for many years, he passed away. He was, he was killed actually. So I have asked for help because this is like a trauma above anything else that I have ever gone through. So above, my normal recovery program, I asked for therapy for this as well. And so that's what is taking my time and my mind and my strength. So, yes. And even going through all of this, alcohol is so called absent. It's just, it's not on my mind at all. I feel so protected within that area, but still I need to handle what's going on. Yeah. Otherwise it might pop up further on.
Exactly. No, that's good that you're still keeping track of that, and you're still checking in on the inside to see how things are going, because that's a lot to go through in such a short period of time. So it's quite a bit of time. Yeah. Before we wrap up, I know that I wanted to ask you that as well, but would you be able to share a little excerpts of your book? You kind of give us a
Yes.
taste of what you have in your hands.
Yes, I would love to. I think I'm gonna share a portion of from the introduction, and most certainly you will relate to some of what have been told here already. Okay, I can start here. Much of this book refers to alcoholism, which has been the primary addiction symptom for myself, as well as love addiction. However, I have applied the principles in this book to many other addictions and dysfunctional behaviors as well. The illness of addiction is described as being threefold. It has to do with the fact that we as humans are three-part beings, that we consist of spirit, body, and soul, and alcoholism deeply affects every single one of these three parts. Alcoholism is also described as a chronic disease, a hopeless condition which one really should not be able to do anything about. That is, medical science has no cure for real help for alcoholism. This is because medical care only treats two parts of the human being, the body and the soul, the flesh and the mind. Medicine is not allowed to treat the spiritual part of man, for the simple reason that traditional medical care is based on natural science. As a result, medical care is simply not allowed to treat patients according to spiritual needs. So therefore, the diagnosis is named chronic alcoholism, meaning that it's incurable from a medical point of view. But millions of people have found a solution to their addiction by following the spiritual path. I will jump a bit. I had a lot of support from my alcohol therapist and the healthcare center I went to during my first year sober. I remained sober, though it was really tough times. I can't say that I was content with the sober life, but I did okay. I received strength to end the dysfunctional and unhealthy relationship I was caught up in, and I practiced being honest about myself and my condition and speaking out loud about what was going on inside my mind. The best help and advice I ever got from my therapist was her honesty when she told me, "We can't do more for you here now. You need to continue your journey with fellowship with other recovering addicts." For me, at that point, it didn't make much sense, but I'm forever grateful that I trusted her and followed the recommendation. I had had my startup with her and was ready to take a leap of faith and get more involved in fellowship with other people living a recovering lifestyle. And it has been my foundational platform of living ever since. A person who truly connects with this message in their heart will never be the same again, and will never be able to drink or use their addiction with the same old habitual mindset again. There are already millions of testimonies around the world of people who advocate the principles discussed in this book. People who were hopelessly lost, people who have been condemned for the betterment by doctors, families, and society, but people for whom, after embracing the message, and together with other recovering people in a loving community, and with the power of God, have experienced that a happy, sober lifestyle is truly possible. The perception of God is most individual, personal, and intimate for every human being. It can sometimes be difficult to put into words and speak about with other people around you, even with other people who also already may be believers. But as the years have gone by, I have found myself more and more drawn to the wisdom of the Christian tradition and principles of living. And it's a bit peculiar and extraordinary since I don't have much of that from my upbringing or from other family members. I was born and raised in Sweden, which is one of the most agnostic and atheistic countries on the globe. And there is no place for God in the everyday life for the average Swede. I didn't have any Christian role models during my youth. I've come to believe, based on my own experiences, when experimenting through prayer and meditation and following the directions revealed in my heart. From my perspective, it's up to every single person to find their own spiritual path. My hope is that every reader is able to read this book with an open mind and a sense of curiosity. We are all our own personal spiritual experiments. There is nothing to lose by trying to seek wholeheartedly, but rather everything to win. Follow the road signs along this hidden path to recovery.
That was beautiful. Very nice. And thank you so much for sharing that, because that's just the beginning of the book. It's just the introduction. And from there, there's so much more that people can get from that book. So thank you again for writing it. Thank you so much for writing it.
And I thank you for this beautiful testimonial you wrote for me. When I wanted to launch the book, it's still the best, most appreciated testimonial I've received.
Oh, thank you. No, but honestly, I appreciated that book so much. Like I said, with the clients of mine, it changed my perspective on how to approach it, how to see it, how to understand it from their point of view, as opposed to a clinical point of view. And that's what I like about the introduction that you read, is they don't treat the spiritual side. They can't. Scientifically, it's hard to put a formula, some kind of scientific on spirituality, and so that just opened up my eyes to so much. So thank you again. And before we wrap it up, I always ask this question just because I always I'm all about growth. We have to evolve. If you stay stagnant, nothing good comes from not moving. So my question is, what would you like to be when you grow up, or what do you want to be when you grow up?
I think that I am already growing up. I'm progressing in my growing upness. And I think I aim to grow in my most inner essence even more, to be even more wise, to be able to help people in a correct way, because that is what's put on my heart, to help people, with this book, as a mentor, in my day work I do now. All this comes down to being a vessel of God's power in my life, basically. So I want to grow in that. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
I don't have a title. Saint? I don't know. No. Don't want to go there.
No, it's very good. It's very good. Yeah. And there's a lot of you can heal a lot through helping others as well. So it's a great thing, and you're doing wonderful work. And honestly, for anybody who's listening or watching right now, that book is definitely something that we should all be reading, to be able to help people around us. There's so many people who suffer in silence that it's important to have those resources. Now, how can people reach you, follow you? How can they get your book? I'll add all of that in the description and in the comments of this episode.
You're more than welcome to reach out. You can contact me on my email. It's called helen@inspirationslabbet.se. It's but you can type it out. It's easier.
I will type it.
Or my website, it's inspirationslabbet.se. I had no intention going international when signing up for my website or host domain. Then I could have used that easier typo. But also there's a Facebook page for the book. It's called Never Again, The Evil Cycle of Addiction. There's Instagram account. You can look me up, either my personal name, Helen Lidman, or never again.
Okay. That sounds good, and I'll put that up in the description as well, so it's easier for them to follow. And I like that you kept the Swedish spelling for it, because then it shows the authenticity of the work.
It's one thing, one way of seeing. I like it.
Right. I do like it. Thank you so much, Helen. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share some of your story. I know that not always easy to share, but it's an important message to be out there, and I really appreciate all the work that you do. So thank you again so much. Thank you. And for everybody listening or watching, don't forget to follow Helen and her beautiful work as well. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to this channel as well. And wishing you all the best. And until next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and we'll talk soon.